Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's report focuses on a major development shaking Eastern Europe, a sudden and unprecedented military uprising inside Belarus that has sent shockwaves through Moscow. Vladimir Putin's long-standing ally, Alexander Lukashenko, is facing one of the most serious internal challenges of his rule, and reports indicate growing defiance within the Belarusian armed forces. What's happening right now could reshape not just Belarus, but also the future of Russia's war strategy and regional power balance. According to multiple intelligence sources and media outlets, factions within the Belarusian military have reportedly staged coordinated protests and, in some cases, seized control of key bases and communication centers. This rebellion comes amid deep dissatisfaction over Lukashenko's subservience to the Kremlin and the continued use of Belarusian territory to support Russia's war efforts in Ukraine. For months, Belarusian soldiers have quietly expressed frustration at being drawn into a conflict they never wanted, and now, that frustration appears to have exploded into open defiance. Eyewitness accounts suggest that the unrest began in the western regions of Belarus, where local military garrisons reportedly refused to follow orders from Minsk. Some soldiers allegedly lowered the Russian and Belarusian state flags and raised nationalist or opposition banners instead, declaring their loyalty to Belarus, not Moscow. Within hours, the unrest spread to several other bases, sparking concern that this could evolve into a full-scale mutiny. Lukashenko, known for his iron grip and zero tolerance for dissent, was said to be caught completely off guard. Russian officials are watching the situation closely and nervously. Moscow has relied heavily on Belarus for logistical and strategic support in its ongoing war against Ukraine. Belarus has provided staging grounds for Russian troops, missile systems, and supply routes since the early stages of the invasion. A destabilized Belarus would severely undermine Russia's operational reach and create a dangerous vacuum on its western flank. Kremlin insiders, according to leaked reports, are deeply alarmed that the uprising could spread or inspire similar dissent among Russian forces already stretched thin by battlefield losses and low morale. There are also signs that this uprising is not just spontaneous chaos, but may have been brewing for months. Analysts note that discontent among Belarusian soldiers has been steadily rising since late summer, when reports surfaced of secret deployments and joint Russian exercises involving Belarusian personnel being used as frontline reinforcements without clear consent. Many families of Belarusian troops have demanded answers about missing soldiers, while independent observers have accused Minsk of covering up casualties sustained in Ukraine. The sudden eruption of rebellion has forced Lukashenko to act fast. State media has gone into overdrive, labeling the uprising as the work of foreign provocateurs and terrorist elements, echoing familiar Kremlin rhetoric. However, sources on the ground say the resistance is homegrown, fueled by nationalism, resentment, and a growing sense that Belarus has lost its sovereignty under Moscow's shadow. Lukashenko's televised address earlier today was tense and defiant. He vowed to crush the mutiny by any means necessary and claimed that the Belarusian state will not be broken. But his tone betrayed anxiety, and reports suggest he has already requested emergency security consultations with Russian officials. In Moscow, Putin's administration faces a dilemma. Direct intervention to suppress the Belarusian revolt risks stretching Russian forces even thinner and sparking outrage both domestically and internationally. But doing nothing could mean losing a vital ally and exposing the fragility of Putin's so-called Union State, the framework meant to bind Russia and Belarus together politically and militarily. Some analysts suggest the Kremlin may deploy elite units or intelligence operatives to quietly assist Lukashenko, just as it did during the 2020 protests. Others warn that the Russian military, already strained by sanctions and manpower shortages, might not have the capacity or will to step in decisively this time. The reaction from Europe and NATO has been cautious but alert. Polish and Lithuanian defense officials have reportedly raised their military readiness levels amid concerns that the unrest in Belarus could spill over the border. NATO's eastern flank is watching closely, wary of any attempts by Moscow to exploit the chaos or use it as a pretext for further escalation. Meanwhile, Ukraine's leadership has expressed optimism that the Belarusian uprising could weaken Russia's strategic position and reduce pressure along the northern front. Kyiv's intelligence agencies have long warned that internal instability in Belarus could become a turning point in the broader conflict. Public sentiment within Belarus is also shifting rapidly. Videos circulating online show civilians gathering near military installations, cheering on soldiers who have refused orders. Opposition figures in exile, including Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, have praised the courageous members of the Belarusian army for standing up against Lukashenko and Putin's domination. However, there are also fears of a brutal crackdown. Belarus's notorious security services, loyal to the president, have already begun mass arrests and curfews in several cities, attempting to choke off communication channels and prevent coordination among dissidents. The situation remains fluid and unpredictable. If the uprising gains further traction, it could lead to a direct confrontation between loyalist and rebel units, effectively plunging Belarus into internal conflict. For Moscow, such a scenario is catastrophic. It would open yet another front of instability along Russia's borders, undermine Putin's image of control, and possibly embolden other allies or satellite states to question his authority. The optics are disastrous for the Kremlin, a military rebellion in one of its closest partner states, triggered by frustration with Russia's war and imperial overreach. Political experts argue that this could be a defining moment for both Lukashenko and Putin. For decades, Lukashenko has balanced between East and West, but his complete alignment with Moscow since 2020 has eroded his independence and legitimacy. Now, as the uprising threatens his survival, he finds himself trapped, dependent on Russian backing, yet facing a populace and a military increasingly rejecting that very influence. For Putin, the stakes are even higher. The collapse of Belarusian loyalty would shatter his vision of a restored Soviet-like sphere of control and expose the deep cracks. Spreading through his alliances, reports from inside Belarus tonight indicate sporadic clashes and heavy security deployments near Minsk and Grodno. There are unconfirmed claims of Russian advisors being flown in under the guise of technical cooperation. Meanwhile, Western intelligence agencies are monitoring military movements closely, fearing that desperate measures, including the use of Russian special forces, could escalate the crisis. In summary, the Belarus military uprising is more than a national rebellion. It's a geopolitical earthquake. It challenges the foundations of Russian influence in Eastern Europe and exposes the vulnerability of Putin's regional ambitions. Whether this rebellion fizzles out or grows into a larger movement could determine the course of the war in Ukraine and the future of the post-Soviet order itself. As events continue to unfold, one thing is clear: the balance of power in Eastern Europe is shifting once again, and both Minsk and Moscow are scrambling to control a situation that may already be slipping beyond their grasp. We'll be watching closely and bringing you all the latest updates as they happen. Stay tuned and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more breaking coverage of this rapidly developing story.